You're listening to Making the Cut, the mostly true life story of a retired surgeon from 1C Productions.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Seitz, founder and president of 1C Productions. This episode contains explicit language and adult content. It is intended for mature audiences only.
By early October 1964, I was caught up with my studies. I felt good about myself, having reached a point in my academic studies where I felt confident in my knowledge. My trip to Egypt made me understand how difficult it would be to embrace life there. I put Egypt behind me, at least for the time being. Refreshed and reinvigorated, I looked forward to the new term.
I was now a second-year medical student, a sophomore. The buzz was that 7 women were among the freshmen of the incoming class. I was determined to enroll all the new incoming students into the Students' Physiology Society, at least as many as I could to increase our operational revenue. I set up a table in the common room with copies of Potential and a sign-up sheet and watched with interest as the freshmen trooped into the room. I knew how they felt. I had been in a similar position 1 year ago, yet it seemed a long, long time ago. I had changed, matured. Now I accepted myself, and I could dream of becoming a physician. If only I could imagine myself vaulting the canyon called Gower Street and becoming a doctor seeing patients. A beautiful siren glided over into my view. Seeing her, I heard the crescendo of Ode to Joy. Hypnotized by her smile, her porcelain English complexion, her straight dark hair, I instantly knew, with crystalline clarity, this goddess will be my wife. I fumble. Oh, hello. I'm the student president of the Physiology Society. The Nobel laureate, Professor Huxley, is the chairman of physiology. It is a must-join club. Only £2 makes you a lifetime member. A bargain. She's nearly hooked. Reel her in, quickly. You'll get this fascinating magazine, Potential, with the latest physiology discoveries. Guaranteed to help you pass any physiology exams. She paused in animated suspension. The society takes you on special tours to behind-the-scene visits to pharmaceutical companies where you enjoy drinks and dinner with their CEO, make connections with physicians in industry, and even get free samples. She took Potential from my hand, flipped through it. I briefly halted my sales pitch, then went in for the kill. All free as a member of this elite club. She produced a checkbook. A Barclays, no less. No student had one. With casual British upper-class poise, she started to write the check. I studied her. She looked more mature than the rest of her group. She exuded a sumptuous affluence, a sartorial elegance in her pinkish-brown woolen suit, white blouse, leather handbag, and 2-inch heels. The essence of sophistication. She passed the check toward me. I glanced at it and saw her signature. Victoria Perfect. Was that her actual name? It was. We both held the check for a moment, making eye contact, communicating silently. She lingered, seeming utterly engrossed. A student stepped up to the table, breaking the aura. She watched me for a magical second as I resumed my sales pitch, then tentatively moved on to the Medical Society display, peering back, sensing my gaze as it followed her. My heart sang in my chest. Enter hombre. By the end of the afternoon, all of the women had meandered in. Some signed up, but only Victoria was the Hallelujah chorus. Had I introduced myself? In the late afternoon, I walked to Commonwealth Hall with a bounce in my step. Victoria's spell lingered through the evening and the rest of the next day. Thoughts of her invaded my studies and meals. Unable to concentrate, I held imaginary conversations with her, even finding myself laughing. Pacing about the residence, at dinner, and in the shower I whistled or sang the Beatles. I give her all my love. I could not sleep or shake her image. I had to see her. On Sunday, I floated the 500 feet to Canterbury Hall. The doorman, whose looks resembled Botticelli, the self-appointed guardian of its 200 occupants, rang my Venus's room.
There's a young man to see you. You available?
He hung up, pointing to a ledger.
Sign here. All guests must leave by 8 p.m.
It was already 2. The whine of the lift seemed eternal, yet stopped seconds later on reaching the ground floor. She appeared, wearing a light print dress. She paused, smiling politely.
Oh, it's you. I expected someone else.
Was she disappointed? In the tiny lift's cabin, we rose toward the 4th floor, in silent, close proximity. I was breathing in her eau de parfum, both of us averting our gazes. The silence was killing me. My spontaneous fib streamed forth. Your check bounced.
Bounce?
I felt like an idiot. Exiting on the landing, I awkwardly apologized. She smiled with relief.
Thank goodness. I wrote several other checks after that.
Victoria looked strikingly appealing. In my irrational state of fascination, she looked even more beautiful. Just seeing her calmed my craze and brought me down from my high. She was in front of me, a graceful, intelligent beauty. Her room looked out onto the same back street as mine. Its greater height gave a different perspective on the white painted houses, reflecting the afternoon sun. Fat pigeons strutted on her window ledge, cooing incessantly. It was a tidy room with a potted plant and a few books. In the middle of the floor was a magnificent portable LP record player, stacked with My Fair Lady. There were no LPs of the Beatles, classical music, or opera. Her carpeted room had a sink. We did not have this convenience in Commonwealth Hall, whose design committee must have assumed men would unabashedly piss into it at night. Our facilities were at the end of a long corridor. At urgent times, a sink would have been handy. I asked Victoria about her educational background.
I went to Godolphin and Latimer. It's a girls' public school.
She told me this sitting on the edge of her bed. I took the only chair.
Would you like a cup of Nescafe?
I declined.
I apologize for my initial reaction downstairs. I was expecting my friend Basil.
Oh, it's all right. Really, have you known Basil long?
We met last year when I was serving as an au pair for my cousin. He's a colonel, and at that time was stationed with the British Army on the Rhine in Bielefeld, Germany.
I wondered what sort of friend this Basil character was. Probably an army sort. A rough, muscular, beer-guzzling type who dropped the vernacular fucking numerous times in sentence. She deserved better. She deserved me. The very thought of Basil made me jealous. She continued her unnecessary but reassuring explanation.
On the occasional evening when I was free, we went out drinking. He's a friend. A mere friend.
I nodded, desperately hoping it to be true.
Your visit is a surprise. What sort of name is Marwan?
My full name is Amin Marwan Abdelaziz Amin Abdel Magid. I'm an Egyptian student. Amin is my grandfather's name. Marwan is my given name. Abdelaziz Amin is my father's name. And Abdel Magid is the family name.
My uncle, Dr. John Perfect, was the physician to the Emir of Bahrain. He had 2 children, and both attended public boarding schools here in England. My little brother Timothy and I visited them in Bahrain on holiday. When Uncle John retired, the Emir gave him a pink Pontiac convertible, which he drove around Knightsbridge. The steering wheel was on the wrong side. Parking became such a problem. It's so long and wide compared to our cars.
It seemed that she had some insight into Middle Eastern life.
Anyway, my uncle trained at St. Bartholomew's Hospital, and I thought that might help when I applied to their medical school. Unfortunately, as it turns out, they do not accept women.
I was astonished at hearing this. When I applied, the first question on their application was whether my father had trained at Bart's. I went ahead and completed the application form, but obviously, I did not get invited for an interview. Daddy went to University College. Victoria shared with me that she lived with her mother, originally a New Zealander, and a brother on the Isle of Wight. She would be only at University College for the initial 18 months of basic science courses, up to second MB examination, Bachelor of Medicine, and would then do a clinical training at the prestigious Westminster Hospital Medical School. Among its discerning patients were members of Parliament across the Thames. In contrast, I thought, University College Hospital, adjacent to the fringes of Soho, London's red light district, had pimps and prostitutes among its distinguished patient population. As she spoke, I watched the light in her pale green eyes sparkle. Her left eyebrow was offset by what looked like a chickenpox scar. She had thin lips, a strong chin, and a long, slim neck. I subtly glanced at her figure, feeling bashful, and hoping that I'd have opportunities in the future to admire it sensually. While we had gotten acquainted, the pubs had opened. Drink?
Oh, yes, please.
At the nearest pub, we perched at the corner of a table, sharing space with other patrons. I went to the bar and ordered a scotch on the rocks and a baby sham. When I returned with our drinks, she eyed my scotch.
You are not an impecunious student after all. Next time I'll have a glass of real champagne.
I smiled. There would be a next time. Victoria was an archetypical first-year medical student, diligently attending the 9 o'clock lecture each morning. By now, I had learned to be more selective. I saw her during lunch break when I would spy her in the refectory. Her beauty awed me as she sat amongst her new acquaintances. During the first week, she was constantly in the company of a fellow student, Jane, which inhibited me from approaching her. Her gaze followed me as I ambled by, waving slightly. I felt awkward and shy at asking her out, thinking she would decline. One afternoon, my fortunes changed. Soon after she started to dissect her cadaver on the alphabetical P table, conveniently located near the M, she sought me out. Wearing her long white coat and carrying the dissection manual and looking radiantly attractive, she approached me.
Could you please help me? I've dissected out the left vagus nerve from its exit at the base of the skull through the chest to the heart and beyond. I cannot find the right one.
I accompanied her, my sunshine, to her cadaver. She and her team had done a fine dissection of the chest cavity, exposing all the pertinent structures and organs, much more diligently than we had done on Fred a year earlier.
You see, here is the nerve, but where is the right vagus?
Ah, come with me. I led her around the table to the other side of the cadaver. See, it's right here. That's why they call it the right vagus. She blushed. Even in her moment of embarrassment, she looked sunny.
Oh, goodness.
Most structures come in twos, right and left. I paused to ease her feelings, including the eyes, ears, lungs, kidneys, and to stay clinical, breasts and testicles. The brain and liver have left and right lobes. Does that help? She nodded. Taking advantage of the moment, I nervously asked if she would come with me to the hop, scheduled next Saturday night, in the central hall of University College, under the Octagon Dome. It was the first social event of the academic year. A local group was jamming, and we could dance and sing to current hits.
Oh, I'd be happy to.
I returned to my cadaver, triumphant. The next couple of days, we walked back to Cartwright Gardens together, lingering before parting. After dinner, we visited in each other's rooms. We explored joint interests and shared our life stories, becoming more comfortable with each other. Where music was my passion, she had an incredible artistic bent. She loved to draw anatomical representations of the human form and admired Da Vinci's drawings in the books she shared with me. Fearing the enthusiasm of my growing emotions, I strove to keep my feelings for her at the platonic level. Responding in kind, she treated me like a brother. She spoke often of Massimo, describing him as an oversexed young Italian she had met in Germany, who tried on numerous times to kiss her, stick his tongue into her mouth. I got the impression that he was particularly insensitive to her conformist upbringing, where her mother's emphasis was on being a nice girl. From her description, Massimo repeatedly attempted to push Victoria's boundaries. Were such anecdotes a form of warning? Or was she sufficiently comfortable sharing these stressful experiences? I was confused, particularly since her beauty, grace, and charm dazzled me, making me fearful of approaching her intimately. I was confused by my intense feelings for this woman, and her responses, which I could not interpret. I waited for her to move the relationship forward, fearing I might lose her if I pushed too hard. Perhaps this would come with time, security, and comfort. She was engagingly intelligent, adding a new dimension to my life. She made me feel like a whole person, one of importance. In a class of 100 male wolves, my having Victoria Perfect's close friendship was perfection itself. It felt good. When they would see us dance at the hop, they would salivate with jealousy. She was mine. Admission to the hop cost 5 shillings each, quite a tidy sum I did not readily have. This was collected at the door. Once inside, there would also be drinks to purchase. Such additional expenses had not been considered when Mother and I worked out my living expenses. Certainly, my Manchester educational grant did not allot such a budget line item. My quandary was that in Arab culture, men paid, and I knew that was the case in England. I did not want to ask Victoria to contribute, certainly not on our first date, even though I knew her scholarship exceeded mine. She had told me, trustingly. A solution had to exist. Here I was with the most desirable woman, on the one hand, wanting to entertain her at a level she deserved, and yet not having the means. What to do? There must be a way. I devised a plan to circumvent the 10 shillings admission fee. I had to enter the dance hall from an inside door. I reckoned we could reach it via a series of corridors, classrooms, connecting halls, and passages through different departments. If we started in the Department of Anatomy and walked north, parallel to Gower Street, and toward the music. Victoria expressed no objections. At 6 in the evening, the heavy oak door from Gower Street to our department was unlocked. It gave way to my shoulder. We entered the dimly lighted entrance hall. I closed the door behind us. Victoria looked apprehensive, keeping her distance, particularly since I whispered each anticipated move, not quite knowing the precise pathway to our destination. I had the vague idea of following my instincts, keeping the traffic noise to our left as we progressed forward, and the music as a beacon. I overlooked the fact that on Saturday night, most of the buildings and corridors would be dark. I went ahead, exploring walls, groping for doors, bumping into furniture. We passed through several rooms, which I figured should lead us in the right direction. Victoria lagged behind. I quietly egged her on. She cautiously followed my voice in the dark until I finally opened a door leading to the dimmed dance hall. I was pleased for having navigated successfully through the challenging maze. On one hand, I had shown ingenuity at beating the system. On the other, I felt cheap. What a jerk.
I thought you were going to jump me in the dark.
I shook my head, acutely embarrassed at my plan's stupidity. We joined the dancers, twisting and shouting to the Beatles as the music throbbed from the stereo speakers. Dancing was invigorating and expressive, even without the aid of alcohol. I danced without inhibition, joining in the songs. No one cared how I gyrated or what I sounded like. I was just happy that Victoria Perfect was with me. To my surprise, Victoria's body movements were stiff. She expressed her discomfort in dancing. She complained that the music was too loud, the floor was too crowded, and I could see she was too self-conscious to let herself go, to enjoy the evening. Still, it was a glorious one. Having dragged her through uncertain darkness, I should have bought her a drink right away. This would have taken the edge off her nervousness and perhaps relaxed her. I stupidly didn't, for I was caught in the moment. Some of my classmates saw us together and registered their surprise. I might have been a fucking foreigner, but I had won the prize. That victory, that achievement, should reach Bowtie's ears. I was a success. Hooray, gossip, hooray. The previous evening, Rory, I, and Richard Lane, Bowtie's friend, had walked to Trafalgar Square to celebrate Harold Winston's election victory. Standing among the throngs, we watched him deliver his acceptance speech, cheering as young rebellious men tend to do. Democracy in action, like I had never seen before. I felt the vitality, vigor, and exuberance of my youth, and the crowning glory of a girlfriend like Victoria. I was on top of the world. Every Friday afternoon, we had a 3-hour pharmacology lab. Fred, our cadaver, had our attention in the late morning. When I arrived, late, in the lab, the rest of my group of 11 males, including Rory and Bowtie, had already formed a semicircle in front of our 2 instructors, pharmacology graduate students.
Today we're going to study the effects of a beta blocker on our physiological system.
Yeah, it's a neat experiment. We'll need a volunteer.
One of you is going to swallow a 25 milligram metoprolol pill. It is very likely you will prescribe this medication to your patients with high blood pressure when you are GPs. It's a very mild dose. The usual is 4 times greater. You will need to know how it feels and its possible side effects.
Its physiological function in the body is described in your lab book, which you should have read in preparation.
I had not.
So, one of you, the druggie, will swallow the pill. The rest will measure the effects of the drug every 15 minutes on the volunteer's blood pressure, the degree of lightheadedness or faintness when standing up, together with his pulse. Metoprolol prevents the heart from increasing its beats to compensate for activity. You will measure the degree of blurred vision and the length of your stride along with other side effects. You will chart the various changes that the beta blocker causes over time. Given this very mild dose, the effect should wear off within 3 to 6 hours, and the volunteer will feel perfectly fine.
I suspected it was part of their ongoing research project, and we were unwitting subjects.
To be on the safe side, we'd want the volunteer to go home and stay in bed. You'll need a friend to keep an eye on you. You will not be able to drink, drive, or travel tonight. By the way, it's difficult to get an erection.
A volunteer? I avoided their gazes. I could not believe my ears. They were asking someone to be a guinea pig to suck and see the drug's effects. The more these two morons spoke about the study, the more I felt this was some hangover of a World War II medical experiment. Did not the Nuremberg trial address the ethics of such studies? Low blood pressure, dizziness, drowsiness, lightheadedness, pounding heartbeat, blurred vision, no beer, and no erection. No erection? On a Friday night? Were they crazy? Naturally, no one volunteered. Disappointed, they started going down the line, interrogating each of us about why we could not volunteer. The answers were variations on the same theme. They were driving with their girlfriends to their parents' houses. Most were lying. I knew they did not have cars. I was lost in line, with no credible reason to get out of the test. My real plan was to visit with John Racky and listen to his new record of Rigoletto. The instructor stood in front of me.
And you? What are you doing tonight that would prevent you from volunteering?
I'm going with my girlfriend to the Isle of Wight to be with her family. The surprise on my classmates' faces nearly gave me away.
Well, I guess we'll have to skip this experiment. You can all leave.
My colleagues' pronounced glares said it all. You have a girlfriend? And you are going to the Isle of Wight? It can only be the incomparable Victoria Perfect. Yes, Victoria was my girlfriend. Well, sort of. No, we were not lovers. Yes, she was going to see her mother for the first time in 6 weeks. I had learned this over our refectory lunch before pharmacology lab. I asked her out to dinner Saturday night at the German Schmidt's restaurant, a relatively upscale eatery by student standards, to ensure we would spend part of the weekend together. That was when she told me of her plans. I was crestfallen. Now I felt the urgency to get myself invited before the bastards discovered my lie. I left the lab and found Victoria departing the anatomy dissection hall. Victoria! I'm coming with you! She looked astonished. I explained my dilemma without revealing my separation anxiety and fear of loneliness.
I'll have to call my mother and let her know. Do you have any coins?
We crammed into the telephone booth in the dim, damp basement next to the men's toilet. I held out a palm full of coins. She dived.
Hello, Mummy?
Darling, are you not coming?
Yes, I am. I'm bringing a friend with me.
A friend? Who is it? Anyone I know? What's her name?
No, it's my boyfriend.
Your boyfriend? Darling, I didn't know you had one. You never told me. What's his name?
Marwan.
Who?
Marwan.
Where's he from?
Egypt.
Good heavens, darling. A wog?
The sound of wily Oriental gentlemen resonated throughout the booth. Victoria turned away from me in the hope that I had not heard.
Oh, Mummy, he's very nice.
Where's he going to stay? Your brother's here.
In the spare bedroom, of course.
We fed more coins into the phone box.
The weekend. We're catching the 5:03 train from Waterloo, connecting to the 6:15 ferry to Ryde.
Tim is driving. We'll meet you at the end of the pier.
I was excited at going with her, full of curiosity, tense with mystery of the unknown and the vulnerability of new friendships. Victoria, sweet Victoria, had saved me. I felt immensely thankful. I had invited myself to get out of a preposterous experiment, rather than face the graduate students and tell them squarely that coercing us to take a high blood pressure drug bordered on the unethical. Maybe I was a coward. In any case, I was not going to be alone. Except, what kind of household was I going to, where such words were uttered and where racist views held?
Thanks for listening to this project from 1C Productions, where thought-provoking media comes alive. Be sure to check out other 1C shows like Freevangelic, in which a married couple discuss their walk out of lifelong evangelicalism and into a new way of being. Their search for truth might open doors for you as well. Learn about Freevangelic and other 1C Productions podcasts at just1c.com. That's JUSTONEC.com.
You've been listening to Making the Cut from 1C Productions. Making the Cut was written, produced, and directed by Rebecca Seitz, based on Michael McGead's manuscript, Mastering the Knife. Noah James played Michael McGead. Other roles were brought to life by the voice talent of Nicola Waldron, Drew DeCarvalho, Oliver Coppert, Trisha Brio, and Martin Strassmore. Audio engineering provided by Zisher LLC. Making the Cut theme music by Kyle J. Baker. Learn more at makingthecutpodcast.com.